Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derbies, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of May Mania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast. Excited to have you along for the ride, episode number 401 tonight on the road to Bash for Cash is coming to a close this week. This is the go-home episode for Bash for Cash. It's going to be aired live on DerbyTees.tv, DerbyNation.tv. Going to be overseeing that one. I know everybody's excited to get out there and sort of reconvene. It's always an awesome show, and I just thought it might be fun to spend a little bit of time with the folks that are listening in from home, the folks that are tuning in on YouTube, that are watching along with us on FingerLakes1.com and FingerLakes1.tv. Give them the opportunity to sort of share some of their thoughts, some of the things that they remember the most from all the trips to Bash for Cash. It sort of started coming back to me, all the different trips that we made, when actually I was answering a question about your roof sign that is due in, and I remembered that we were trying to make it out this week for Bash for Cash a couple years ago, but I had to get something in the mail, but it wasn't going to be done until the morning we were leaving. And then the morning we were leaving, we got delayed, so the roof sign actually made the trip out with us. And during the day, before everything got going, Saturday. One of the days,
Saturday, you and I went to...
We went to the post office in downtown Chillicothe.
No, it was when it was still at, we were still in...
Washington Courthouse?
Washington Courthouse. Yeah, yep, I remember that. Yeah, because that was the morning, like I showed up here, like I was supposed to be at your house at like 7 or 8.
We were going to leave at 7, and I don't think we got out of town until close to 9 or 10.
Yeah, and I kept texting you. I'm like, did you leave without me? What's going on? Da, da, da. And you didn't answer any texts. And I was
My car wasn't there.
Yeah,
and you're like,
it was empty. And I'm like, damn, what happened? Like, what do I? And then you finally showed up, and we were on the road. But yeah, I remember that. I think that was the second year we went, because you and I were the only ones that made the tow.
2014?
Yeah, I think. You and I made that tow out solo. And actually, we've made all the tows out solo other than the first one. But yeah, I remember that. We went, and because it was, Saturday, they don't start till later in the afternoon. So we got up and went and sent out a roof sign.
Yep. But I mean, just think about the number of, just the sheer number of cars. If nothing else, just think of the number of cars that have met their end.
Wagons. How many Chevy wagons have we seen dunked out there?
A lot.
I mean, there's not as many as there used to be, but I mean, the first couple of years we went out, there was probably 15, 20 wagons a year.
Wagons as far as I could see.
Fresh, ready to go.
Straight off the Brauntree.
Yeah, straight off the Brauntree. Well, actually, when we first started going, Randy Hiley was still running. So there was a couple of Hiley wagons we saw run out there. The last time we saw Randy run, and it might have been his last run, I remember he lost his steering, 10, 15 minutes into the heat. I'm like, man, that's going to be rough, because that's, that turn back the clock class, it is definitely one of the hardest features to win in the country, with a full healthy car to compete with the bronze. And I'm like, man, he's going to have, and then he drove it right down to like 4th or 5th.
Was that the year that Pat won the raffle car? The raffle car was a wagon?
Yes. Yeah, that white wagon.
Yep.
Yeah. And he got the back seat, drove right to the back of the driver's seat. Yeah. Yeah, he got down in the corner, and I think he was going after the bronze, and he got down in the corner. That would have been the first year in Chillicothe. And he got down in the corner closest to where the pits are. And one of the bronze lined him up and hit him at about 60.
Remember that hit?
Yeah.
I mean,
it shortened that car dramatically.
Well, it was either that hit or it was the follow-up where somebody hit him from the side, and it sounded like the car drove straight into the concrete.
Yes, yes.
Wall. I mean, It sounded like a bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mentioned last week the Frank the Tank wire class. That's been my favorite one since they've had that heat. And I've been lucky enough for the most part to be able to get down close to the track, and man, them guys, those cars aren't very heavily built, and man, those guys make junk out of them. So I mean, you can I stand back from the wall obviously, but they're hitting each other and the walls hard enough to where you can feel ground shake. I mean, that is just it's insane. But
Adrian Gilbert's good at that.
oh yeah, yeah. They put on a hell of a show last year. Him and the guy that they built out of the same shop, or they're built together or something. I believe they came down to 1-2 last year, and they were hitting each other as hard as they were hitting anybody else. It was very impressive.
Dale Randall's going to be out there this year. That should be fun to see.
Yeah.
Mark Early's making the trip out, and I believe that's a relation to Dave Early.
Yes. Yep. I believe you're right. Yeah, I seen some pictures of some cars. Mark Elliott had a picture up of one of the bronze wagons. I don't know if it was a this year. I can't believe it'd be this year's wagon out of the shop already. I don't think they unveil them till like the Friday of the week. But and people can say whatever they want about the bronze, but I mean they are great builders and great drivers. I mean you don't win every Bash for Cash for however many years by accident. It's they are prepared. They know what they got to do. They're very good.
You talk about having to know what to do, and that is a huge part of Bash for Cash, I think, is knowing what to do. Avoiding some of the distractions that happen as part of the extracurricular activities at Bash for Cash is a big part of it, but also that level of experience. Like you said, knowing what to do and having that awareness. The track this year, the approximate measurements are 85 feet by 325 feet. And there's a lot of real estate that you need to be keeping an eye on. And you see early on, in every class that's out there, no matter what, the initial flag drops and the field parts to put noses to the outside.
Yes. Generally, yes.
And I know that's a derby strategy, and we're kind of overstating something with that. But, it's every time you have to know what you're doing, because the minute you get cleared, it's over. I remember one of those Frank the Tank classes. It was the Frank the Tank class, not the 80s wire class. Frank the Tank, J.C. Molly's was put up over a wall. And, I mean, you never see that.
No.
He was put up, and the back tires were 15 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of wagon to be up in the air.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. We've seen a lot of wild stuff out there. Mike Klinger and Tiffany, they put on a show for the 2 or 3 years they ran out there, and they were running just as hard and just driving just as hard, and man, they would usually sweep, they would win and also win Mad Dog. I mean, they put on a show. They used all that track, and it's definitely, like we said before, it is definitely a bucket list. I mean, you have to go there and experience it. They're trying some different classes this year. It'll be interesting to see how everything goes, but I think they're trying to get things to be more fast paced. They had a little bit of an issue last year with one class. I think the feature was like 2 hours, but when we've talked about that, the majority of the crowd unfortunately doesn't like that, but you can't tell somebody how to drive the car that they built. So, it's interesting. I mean, the 80s and newer class, that was, there was times it would drag, but there was also times where guys were really getting after it. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything goes, and I'm looking forward to it.
The show itself was established early on as one of the crown jewels. Mm-hmm. That last run for Toby's dad, which I believe it was not even the classic highly run either.
No.
Having no steering, he still wheeled the thing down. But if he stayed mobile,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it definitely would have been they would have made it much tougher. I would tell Toby every year that I saw him there that he needed to build the car and, come back and run, and he'd just smile and kind of shake his head. But, no, we've seen a lot of neat stuff out there. I mean, we've seen some neat cars come up from the South. Remember one year there was a mid-60s Ford wagon made it to the feature. just neat stuff. I mean, the Cadillac having guys, they've brought up a lot of Cadillacs, obviously. Last year, one of them had a shocker with an imp frame under it in the turn back the clock class. So it's neat to see the different things, and obviously imps are allowed there. It'll be interesting to see. I think there was a couple imps last year besides that one. So the Sciopas, the first year.
Sciopas, I think they had Imperials last year.
No, they didn't run last year.
Last time we saw them there.
Yes, they did. They both had subframers. And I believe Steve got Mad Dog, and Mark made it to the feature and made it down to the top 10. He wheeled it a long ways, and he didn't have steering either. Hard imps they had, man. They were nasty.
And I think Steve ended up put up on the blocks at the far end, right?
Yes, in the feature. Yeah, early. But I mean, we've seen a lot. The Sciopas have a lot of good runs out there. I remember one year, Steve and I can't remember which one of the bronze, but it was at Washington Courthouse. They were at the far end of the track, the opposite end where they drive on, and him and one of the bronze just squared off. And I mean, it was a heavyweight fight. I mean, blow for blow, counter for counter. It was awesome. Mark one year had a Riviera. And this was before Rivieras were all the rage, and he went out in the heat, and he got hit early, and the car like jumped in the air. And while it was in the air, somebody hit him in a tire, and it kind of folded his tires in. And he kept working and he got a little bit of steering back. He drove it right down to the end and ended up winning the heat. But there was just it couldn't be fixed for the feature, and it wouldn't be worth taking to the feature. And he was just devastated because I mean that car was hard. He was making big shots with it. Doing a really nice job, and we see Todd out there. Todd loves his wagons. That's the first time we went out there, Todd was in one of his 501 wagons, and it was had the pink on it for his mom for kicking cancer's ass, and cool. It's just we've seen a lot of neat stuff.
I didn't realize that was where the pink came from. Yep. After all this time, I just thought that was everybody in that camp has their colors. There's red, black, and yellow, and there's green and black, and Todd always had the pink. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep, that's what he told me was from when his mom kicked cancer's ass. So that was that. But
it's always worth celebrating.
Absolutely, absolutely. But
I think one of those that stands out to me that we were kind of just riffing about the full size cars was when. They brought those Imperials. Mm-hmm. It was no secret what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Everybody was on good terms, but it was no secret what was going to happen.
No.
And it quickly took the form of a team heat.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was it was just, I think Mark's car started getting hot. Remember how it was late at night and there's some condensation in the air and the stacks had become to glow cheer red, they're turning blue at the top. And
yep.
They were red. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of fun to watch. And those guys were getting after it. For a heat that everybody was kind of sideways staring at. This thing's going to last 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was over within 45 minutes.
Yes, and it was a hard hitting, fast paced 45 minutes. And not to not give the compacts love. I mean, we've seen the Rutherfords, David Tillery. We've seen some hard hits and some hard driving and that compact.
Remember Chris Steepro?
Yes.
When it was what? It was like 2-on-7.
Yeah.
And he won the thing.
Yeah, that was very impressive. He drove his butt off that time. The gentleman from Dilliath Motorsports, he got his first Mad Dog there last year. Oh my goodness. All he wanted to do was drive that thing end to end wide open, and he was doing it. He was, he won Mad Dog in the heat, and he said, I'm going to get me one of those dogs in the feature, and he did. He put on a hell of a show. Patrick Dellis, right?
Yeah.
What a show he put on. It's just, and that's the thing. I mean, unfortunately, some people have tried to downplay bash, but I mean, there's usually every heat, there's some sort of fast-paced action. Mm-hmm. It may die down, but usually it's, at least for a while, there's some pretty fast-paced, hard-hitting action.
The getting to know you stages of the features are usually just jockeying for position. Mm-hmm. The heats have one or two people that decide, I'm going to qualify as a Mad Dog.
Yeah.
A couple names, Dallas comes to mind, and Devin Germain.
Yes.
Another guy that comes to mind. And then
And I think he's coming back this year. I think they're both going to be back this year.
and there's some new folks coming out of Canada.
Yes.
Now that they've
Open the borders again.
and and it's going to be the floodgates.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely going to be interesting. And that's the thing we touched on it is there's a lot of new names and there's a lot of people that want to go to Bash and make their name, and you really can. I mean, you go to Bash for cash and you put on a show. And Devin has. I mean, he's done. I think he's got 3 Mad Dogs and compacts, and then I think he got the Mad Dog last year in the Relic class as well, with the guard powered. I think it was a Studebaker, and he put on a show last year and walked away with the Mad Dog in that. So, but I mean that's Devin was known by that before he and Christy started putting on even promoting derbies. I mean Devin was known because he'd won those 3 Mad Dogs in a row out there, and then last year was a 4th, I believe. But it is, man. You go to a big show like that and put on a show. People are going to talk about it. It's just it's and especially with social media, people it's going to get from one corner of the country to the other. So it's definitely a place you can go and really set yourself apart.
The ability to set yourself apart is another one of those hallmarks of the show. I mean, look at the progress that was made by the drivers out of Western New York coming out there. Matt Gaskin.
Yep.
And Matt Gaskin Sr.
and Junior.
And
Yeah.
I mean, whichever order you want to go, you're going to definitely bring up the other. But
Yeah.
I was thinking more along the lines of what Senior was able to do in those 80s wire classes. That was his wheelhouse,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he won Mad Dog 2 or 3 years in a row.
Several years, yeah.
Matt went out there the first
He
time.
didn't, and those guys were all in a one and done setting.
Yeah.
So it was. I almost think that it was more difficult to set yourself apart because if you punched too hard, you're out too early, and
Then you're forgotten by the end of the heat.
Right.
Yes.
and he was able to hang around with that River Rat roof sign, and man, he was proud of that too. He was when he got that third one, he was
he was very excited.
well earned.
And Matt Jr. I remember the first year he went out there, took an Impala, ran the turn back the clock class, drove smart, and he drove right into a top 10 in the feature. And, he ran the 80s and newer, full weld class for a better term. And, he had some good runs in that. And then last year he ran his car down to, I think
7th.
No, he was like 3rd last year.
Okay.
In the one, was it the street stock class?
It may have
The
been.
one where it came down to the 2 guys from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Matt Jr. was either 3rd or 4th in there with those guys. So he's, they've represented themselves well. I mean, all the guys from Western New York that have went out there have, most all of them I think have brought back.
Dave King, Evan King, and Tom Henderson have generated a lot of victories among the 3 of them, running no matter where they went.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that was a huge win when Tom ended up taking home. And he did it in Bash for Cash in the kicker class, driving the strategy that everybody else did. He picked his parking space, defended that, and if nobody came in it, he wasn't going to hit anybody until he had to.
Yep. No,
Save the car.
Yep.
And the fortune was that the transmission went away in Coke's machine. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened. But if that hadn't gone away, that was shaping up to be
great
2
battle.
very, very good cars and very, very good drivers. That would have been a chess match.
I think Jason's had a couple heartbreakers out there. He's been down to the top 2 or 3 a couple times and had just heartbreaking luck.
I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody that had an engine issue, and there was some talk that they were going to yank the engine out of his truck last year.
I don't remember that.
Last year, the year before. Well, he had he had a truck that basically everything was set so far back, he was essentially sitting in the back seat.
I don't remember that.
And I can't remember what it was now. There was some a number of dominoes had fallen to where they were almost ready to take the engine out of that truck and dump it into a car, or they did, or something. I can't remember for sure what the full circumstances were.
I remember being out there one year, and Jeremy Gard was there, and they were changing engines in one. I think it was an Ingram car from Canada, and then it came down to him and. I can see his face. He's won Blizzard Bash a couple times. 18W, 18H. He ran with Toast. The last year he ran was the last year. Last year Sam was there. He's from Kentucky. Oh, Daryl Monroe.
Okay.
Came down to Daryl Monroe and Ingram, and they battled forever. Two guard, and it was one of those hot, nasty Ohio days that we've experienced out there. And those two cars with guards they would, one would stall and they'd get it started, the other just pounding. And I remember afterwards, both of them, Ingram ended up winning it and Darryl was second, but they both got out of their cars and sat down on the track. It just poured water I couldn't imagine running that long to begin with. And then having the heat from a motor and a tranny right now. I mean, yes, they run coolers, but there's still heat coming off all that stuff. It was, and those guys both just looked whooped. That was at Washington Courthouse. That was crazy. That was another great memory from there. But
I remember the year that Sam came out and everybody from New York brought wire class cars. Mm-hmm. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was fun.
And I think that was one of those times where Tiffany had sort of set herself apart from everybody else, and it's just like, man, this is going to open the floodgates on an era of dominance, or at least perpetuate it.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Tiffany and Mike stayed on top of that heap for a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then Mike ended up. I don't know. That wasn't the one. I think one of them, Mike, went out earlier because usually it would come down to those two, or they'd be right there at the end together. But that one there, Tiffany ended up running probably half the heat by herself, and man, she was after it and did what she had to do, and she came out of there with a mad dog and the feature. So that was very impressive. And Jeremy Gully had a Cordoba that year, had dry shaft troubles, and offered me to run that car at the Caledonia Crash and Jam
Festival, yeah.
And I went over there and made the feature and ran that, and that was really cool. That was the first time somebody offered me to run, their own car. So that was neat. But that made me think of that when you brought that up.
You were talking about those hot, nasty Ohio days. I got into that Cordoba because that Cordoba, there was some stories about that Cordoba, and it was just kind of neat that it was there. And if I remember right, it still had the bench seat in it.
I think so.
And Gully was right there, and everybody was there, so I got into the car on the passenger side to take a picture, but it had been baking in the sun, and it was so hot I couldn't touch anything.
Nice.
Like to pull myself out, it was burning my hand, and I started to get a little bit panicked. Like the wall started closing in. It was like claustrophobic. I mean, we got the picture, but after that, I was like, I'm gonna die if I don't get out of here right now.
Foreshadowing, a few short years later, you were in the passenger seat with Gully, and
I never even thought about that. But wouldn't it be something if that was the same year in May? I couldn't get out of the car. I did that with one of Josh's cars too. One time, I got in there and took a picture from behind the steering wheel, and he was kind of leaning on the door. He goes, he got real serious. He goes, you look real good right there. And I'm like, I do not. I do not. I know how this story ends. I know what you're going at for. No. Pete did that one time at Broome County.
Really?
He goes, I'm gonna bring that Riviera that I've got up there, and it's just like sitting on your couch playing a video game. You can shift that thing with one finger, flick that thing back and forth, forwards and backwards. I'm like, no. Nope. I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like I can see the future here. and there was a bunch of people around that are saying, I don't know why it is that you think it's a good idea to tell Pete Hansen no when he offers to let you drive the car. And I'm like, I can think of dozens of reasons why this is a bad idea. And that Bash for Cash was almost custom built for Pete Hansen arguments. Because the rules always come out with plenty of time, and he sits there and he studies and studies and studies, and you often say to me that people don't look at the world the same way that you do, and it's true. And Pete doesn't look at a rule book the same way that other people do, whether it's a promoter or a rule writer or an inspector or whatever the combination might be. And he can dissect rules, and he can find like I really believe that he could have been a very, very challenging English professor if he ever decided to apply his skills for that of the academic world. But the way that he would pick the rules apart, and he would find these things, and you show up with these cars, and then on top of that, he was willing to go that extra step just to make conversation pieces, kind of like what Jason Brzezinski's done a couple of the trips out there to Topeka, to Blizzard Bash, and it was always the is he or isn't he, but it's also kind of like the prophecy was never fulfilled, and that he never had the chance, at least up to this point, to take the main class win home.
Yeah, it's the thing that I will always remember about Bash for Cash, and it's neat. I mean, we're blessed. We go in and watch inspection, and it's funny to listen to drivers and builders discuss with inspectors how that rule didn't really mean that, and how that's not how that rule was wrote, and and I truly believe, and we've said this a million times, and this is out of respect for Ohio. But when I say Ohio build, they build basically the way they want, and they are willing to unbuild whatever you may find. But the thinking is you're not going to find everything. So if I've done 10 things and you find 7, then I got 3 through. And we've seen some damn near complete rebuilds after inspections. There's been some cars that came in one solid color and went out with stripes on them.
Right.
And that's not a knock against anybody, though. I don't talk bad about anybody that does that.
And it's
you're running for one of the biggest. You're running for a crown jewel, like you said, and it's 10, 12 grand to win now, and it's been 10 grand for a long time. That's good money. I mean, it's not life changing money, but that's a nice check to pick up over a weekend, 10 grand or 10 grand cash or however they happen to pay it. So I don't begrudge them, and for the most part, the inspectors and the drivers, they can find somewhat of a happy medium, but it's just neat to watch. It really is. Get in there and just listen and kind of chuckle and. But
if you have the opportunity at any point to be a wallflower in and around that inspection barn, it gets busy and it gets intense. And there's the drive out always tells a story. There's drivers who drive out with a sheet that has 2 things on it. It's like, you just got a very long weekend. Mm-hmm. You didn't do enough. Mm-hmm. And then there's the drivers that come out of there after they've had these intense theoretical discussions about intent and response and what the meaning of a comma is versus a colon, and all of that stuff. And then there's always one driver that pulls out, and he's got the list, and the list has everything on the planet marked. And when he goes by, he's got this smirk. I'm like, they didn't find it all, did they?
Yeah, we've definitely seen those smiles.
The breadcrumbs worked.
Yeah, we've definitely seen those smiles before. But it's no different. We've compared Bash for Cash to Syracuse. In the old days, that's how it was at Syracuse. When Gary Ballou showed up there with the Batmobile, he changed racing, and there was nothing they could do. And the next day, 8 or 10 cars showed up imitations of the Batmobile. And
what did they do to imitate it? Did they lift the roofs?
Our Tricler lifted the roof. A lot of guys just added more panels, made cars wider, tried to make them more aerodynamic. Because in 1980 aerodynamics wasn't a thing in Central New York modified racing. No. It was big horsepower, drag tires and soft tires and hooking up. But they showed up there with, a radically aerodynamic, put together car by Kenny Weld, and it revolutionized it.
It was low to the ground, and the cab was enclosed to the width of where the cab would be, and the doors were open and exposed. And we don't have that in Demolition Derby. that allows that type of innovation, because what would show up?
Yeah.
Mostly, protect. How many times have we said the rules are intended to protect drivers from themselves?
Yes.
And
Well, you know what though, in a small, minute way, in all honesty, I would compare it to the cages in Blizzard Bash cars. Yeah, Blizzard Bash cars. It's a different show, but you look at the cages in a Blizzard Bash car, and in theory, it's there to protect the driver.
sure.
But it serves a pretty good purpose. So that's, and I mean, and I
On
think
so many fronts.
yes, that's kind of leaked over to Bash for Cash. I mean, we've seen, the years we've been there. Oh, excuse me. We've seen, holy cow, we've seen some very drastic advances in the cages. I mean, they used to just be, basically a 4-point cage. Well, they're definitely not 4-point cages anymore. No. There's the fuel cell protector in the wagons that happens to go back to the hump of the wagon where, they might bend. It's neat, and it's interesting to see how trends and styles have come across the country.
Heinen's. Speaking of trends and styles.
Yeah.
Heinen's, for a while there, had everything figured out, and a little bit of luck would have changed the course of history a number of times. And the battles that they had with the bronze and the closing moments of multiple different turn back the clock features were always so much fun to watch.
Yes.
And I mean, we've had the fortune of having a couple of those guys on the show in the past, and I don't honestly, when we were ripping through those lineups, I don't for sure remember seeing those names.
No, the Heinens weren't there, which is too bad. I mean, they definitely build great cars, good drivers. So I mean, that's definitely not a good thing for that class.
It'll come around. It always does.
Absolutely,
It'll come around.
Derby's cyclical.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
We've seen that over the last few years.
I mean, another one of the things that stands out, and I wasn't there to watch it fully in person, but Chris Furster's run at, I believe that was at Washington Courthouse. The year Scott Wallace brought a two-door Impala, and Chris Furster, I can't remember if it was all of his cars were the same. No matter what he built, after they ran, they looked the same. Every one of them did exactly what he wanted them to do. Chris Furster, he's I think he's a cousin of Mike DeFreesia, and he's the guy that went to the fall brawl show in 2011 in Brookville with a Diplomat and ran the stock show and won it, and then changed the tire and added some fuel and came back out in the mod class and went top 3 with it.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
And
How crazy is that?
And the car looked the same. I mean, every car ends up, but he had a run, and I can't remember if he had a Diplomat there the year that we had the video footage from that, and it was old footage, but it was really, it was actually, some of that stuff used to be in some of the opening sequences in the early days of what we were doing here. But his runs out there were always stuff of legend.
Is his son running again this year? Because he was in a bunch of the youth shows last year. I remember the name, and I hadn't heard him in any of our youth rundowns this year. Not that there's been a boatload of them, but Chris is looking intently on the computer. A surprised look on his face.
Yeah, I don't. You're right. I don't see it. I don't see it in the youth full size anyway. I might be wrong, but I'm not seeing it quickly. There was more. There was one more class to look at. I find that a little surprising.
Yeah, he had a real good. I think it was. Yeah, he had a real good year last year. He had some really good runs.
I don't see it jumping off the page. Not to say that it's not there, but I don't see it jumping off.
Our buddy Logan Duvall. He's been a stalwart at Bash for Cash for years. I remember one year he missed his graduation, and they did it Facebook Live basically with his school. So he had his diploma and his hat and the whole nine. But he's another one. A little bit of luck, he would have walked away with the kicker class. He was always top 5 out there. It seemed like he was tough cars.
Was it Gage Sumner or was it Logan that got rolled over early in the going and still almost won it?
Logan. Logan and Pete were battling. And Pete, remember Pete had that Impala that was like this high off the ground? Got underneath Logan and put him up on his side, and then they continued battling. And I think Logan broke it right front on Pete's car.
I remember the year that Pete had that wagon and everything was lining up. Man, it looked like that was the year. That was the year. Going to get the monkey off the back. It was going to be 1999 Daytona. It was going to be it. And I don't know what happened. He backed off the line, and the rear end broke just like that, or the transmission. There was too much horsepower.
Something.
Yeah, and there was just too much power going through it.
That's wagon he took home and welded up and ran like 37 times that summer, and won like 36 of them.
And I mean, it doesn't matter if you make $10,000 in one night or over the course of weeks of time, right?
That's the one he brought to Waterloo when him and Jeremy and Matt Gaskin came down to those three at the end of the mod show. The last time I won Waterloo. They put on a pretty good show. And Pete had broke a tie rod or broke a control arm or something there and was dragging a tire around, but they still battled pretty hard.
Aren't you glad that you didn't shut off for Brett that night?
Yes, I'm really glad I didn't shut off for Brett that night. I wish I would have known he had a broken no steering much earlier. I would have hit him once and drove to the other end and not had anything wrong with my car. But everything happens for a reason.
Was that the night that the qualifying heat, there was like 4 cars out there? Or maybe it was Wednesday night. They had the gray and black Cadillac, and they were telling you and Terry to keep going at it. And
no, that was a couple years prior. That was that year. I took that car on the heat night, and I went out and was like made 2 hits, and all of a sudden I shifted and it wouldn't go anywhere, and it had pulled the linkage mount out of the transmission. So took it home and put it all back together, put it in. And for whatever reason, when I shift, and the only thing I'd done different was put a little bit longer bolt in it. And I would shift and it would stay in low. Like if I was in reverse, it was in low, and I'm like, so I took that bolt out and magically it started working. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And Dad's like, don't tighten it down that far again. And I'm like, okay. Went out and ran the feature and ended up coming down to Brett and I.
One of the years that also stands out to me in all of our trips out there to Ohio, we gotta feed our break here in a moment. One of our trips out there was it was always cool to have the support for the free stuff that we're doing on the edge. You know, we tried the best we could to play by the rules, make sure we didn't step on anybody's toes, but we wanted to bring some of the behind the scenes stuff, some of the interviews and everything. And no matter what was going on, Russ would come over, and before he asked anything, before he asked a question, he wasn't even necessarily looking to get on the air. What do you guys need? Is everything going okay? Is there anything that we can do? And then inevitably he would refuse and then sit down, and we would just be quiet, and knowledge would be handed out for free.
Yes.
And it was always so cool. And going back, you know, in the Wayback Machine, when we were in the throes of trying to get home, but making good on it, and the lights were being shut off, and all the road lights at the Syopa compound were basically doing everything they could to give us enough light to have it looked basically like flashlights in our face.
Yeah.
But even in the midst of all that, after all the calamity, all the payout, and everything that had to happen through the course of that day, Russ still came over then to do a breakdown show, which was really, really cool. I mean, we can't say thanks enough to the Syopas and stuff. Make no mistake, that was a great opportunity to do all of the things that we did with them that weekend. But when Russ came over in the midst of all that, and I don't remember if it was set up or if he asked or what the deal was, he just kind of organically came over to see what was going on. And
that's, and
he sat down. I mean, what are you doing? You have 1,000 other things to do. It's like, it'll happen.
Yeah.
It was great.
That was, one of the, it might have been the last time I saw Russ. We were at Capital City Carnage, and Russ came up, and like I was talking along, and we were all talking, and I felt something, and I looked behind me, and there stood Russ. And I'm like, you want to talk? He's like, yeah, I'll sit down. And he sat down, and I'm like, hey, I said, because they're the bosses. And I said, are you going to be on here for a while? He's like, yeah, I'll stay up. I said, do you mind if I go down and stand by the track? He goes, no, go ahead. And I went down and stood on the wall and watched. And that was so cool because I'd never watched it from that vantage point out there. We're isolated in Topeka. We're up up in the booth behind plexiglass. We really don't hear the noise. We don't feel the hits.
And when you do, they're big ones.
Oh God. But no, that was great. Russ was always, he was a great dude. We're very, 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 very missed.
Mm-hmm. Big time. I can't believe that we've gotten to 640. We didn't even get into the front wheel drive beating the rear wheel drives from last year.
Yep.
So let's kind of put a pin in that for the moment. We will be right back. We want to share a little bit of information about Jeffy's Fab Farm. We've got some information about All For Him Racing, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the schedule for Bash for Cash, Iron City Nationals. We'll be right back.
Where'd you go?
We did the derby.
Ow, my head! You want to do a derby?
Hey Derby World, this is All For Him Racing Videos, where Derby never ends. We have people come up and ask, what is All For Him Racing Videos? And the answer is a YouTube channel dedicated to growing the sport of demolition derby in a positive and fun way. Our passion is to show the next generation the sport and capture the memories for generations to come. We're just trying to show that you can be a Christian, do crazy and exciting things like demolition derby, and just spread the word. We have traveled all over the country filming events, all while meeting many great people, hearing amazing stories, seeing the passion for this sport, and falling in love with the derby community. We have grown to be the largest demolition derby channel on YouTube across the world, with millions of views within our large library of videos. We love what we do and can't wait for what the future has in store. We always want to be a place for positive, exciting, and action-packed derby videos. Thank you, Derby World, and enjoy the videos.
Jeffy's Fab Farm in Fredericksburg, Virginia specializes in all of your demolition derby needs. We've got you covered from bumper to bumper. Whether you need headers, shifters, harnesses, fueling systems, or complete turnkey setups, Jeffy'sFabFarm.com can help. We've even got a Canadian branch to help our northern customers. With over 16 years in the industry, we've got the knowledge and experience needed to provide the highest quality parts and put you in the winner's circle. Visit our website today or call Jeff at 540-907-3390. Fabby says the best parts come from the farm. Jeffy'sFabFarm.com.
And we've been talking about the Bash for Cash. The Bash for Cash is going to be May 27th, 28th, and 29th at the Ross County Fairgrounds in Chillicothe, Ohio. Payouts, 3-man pro stock, $15,000 to win. Turn back the clock, $12,000 to win. Smash it minis, $10,000 to win. All the one and dones paying $2,500 to win. Online for the agenda.
Holy cow, Chris is even tired.
SmashItDerby.com. Friday is the start time of 7 o'clock. Pro Stock Team Heats, the Smith Metal Works Youth Full Size pits open at 8 a.m. Again, 7 o'clock start time for Friday. Saturday, 3 o'clock start. 3 o'clock is the Power Wheels, and then at 4 o'clock, the Turn Back the Clock Heats, Pro Stock Team Consti, Youth Mini, Street Stock Van and SUV, Street Stock Full Size, Frank the Tank, Smash It Mini, all part of the program on Saturday. And then Sunday, the Championship Sunday program, 1 o'clock start, Farm Truck, Street Stock Mini, Relic Class, Pro Stock Mini, Smash It Full Size, Pro Stock Team Feature, Turn Back the Clock Feature, pits open at 8 a.m. again online, SmashItDerby.com. We were talking a little bit about the Iron City Nationals as well. Friday, September the 9th, 7 o'clock start, Stock Compacts, Big Wayne Class, 2-man Extreme, Super Stock, Heat number 1. It's open at 8 a.m. Saturday, September the 10th. 6 o'clock start, Power Wheels, Most Wanted Fine Arts, Full Size Youth Class, Super Stock Feature number 2, Super Stock Feature number 3. Pits open at 7. That's at the New Alexandria Lions Club, 1874 Lions Club Road, New Alex, PA. IronCityPromos.com. Super Stocks, $10,000 win in championship belt. Big Wayne, $2,500 in championship belt. 2-man Extreme, $2,000 to win in a championship belt. Stock Compacts, $1,500 to win. Most Wanted Fine Arts, $1,500 to win. That's the Street Stock Challenge. And then the Youth Full Size, $700 plus a championship belt and a fresh 98-02 Crown Vic. I don't know if you got a thing for 98-02's Realistic Derby Project. Just remastered the 98-02. The Crown Vics are out of the game for the time being, with the exception of this one, and it is going to change the trajectory of the Crown Vics. They've fixed the back end, so it's not so sticky. You can run the Crown Vic exceptionally hard, and some of the stock Crown Vics were eating the roundbacks head to head. So it was a lot of fun to get that. And there's more tweaks and upgrades. Actually, tonight we were on the air. There was a hot fix that was released for the Realistic Derby Project. So tweaking things a little bit more to make sure you don't want to swing things too far. But it's gonna
I don't know about a stock Vic beating a stock roundback. That's kind of crazy.
it was, yeah. Well, that might be one of the things was adjusting that hot fix too. But it was pretty neat to see those cars really getting the treatment that they deserve compared to where the cars are right now. A progressive waste management group serving nearly 4,000 residents and businesses around Owego, New York. The RPM Group can take care of all your waste management needs. RPM Group boasts a fleet of 2 roll-offs and 6 garbage trucks. RPM is fully insured and ready to serve. Ask about asbestos abatement and surveys, interior and exterior demolition, private parties and foreclosures, curbside trash and recycling. Click or call RPM Group NY 607-223-8714. Frankie Guy hanging out in the live chat. His schedule starting to get ready to pick up here June the 25th. They got a little bit of time off, so I'm sure we're going to see the golf cart cruising around in Chillicothe, Ohio. Day of Destruction in Dunbar. Then July the 2nd, Mayhem on the Mountain. July 23rd, King of the Hill in Windridge, Pennsylvania. July the 30th, Extreme Destruction. I just found out there's been some interesting developments in the Realistic Derby Project virtual derby world. Washington Warzone, August the 13th, is going to have a paired event in the virtual realm. Ryan Dever is going to be doing that, and then also the Labor Day Lockdown, September 3rd and 4th in Stoneboro, Pennsylvania. That's going to be on the schedule as well. Route 40 Rumble, and then the Hardcore Cleanup Show. The Final Confrontation, October 1st and 2nd, will cap the season before the Hardcore Cleanup Show. HardcorePromotions.com has the details. Next up on the Unified Point Series, Smash It Splash for Cash in Chillicothe, Ohio is the next one. We're talking about that one. Ty Richards still on top, 48 points. Bill Miller with 45. Steven Sickles, Trevor Jones, J.D. Loreen. The rundown from there. And then TNT's Wexford Warzone in a couple weeks up in Cadillac, Michigan. And then June 16th, 17th is Top Notch Southern Illinois Showdown in Marion, Illinois. And then the last event of June is going to be Buchanan's event at Richmond in Richmond, Indiana, before they get into a very busy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 event July for the Unified Point Series. The Unified Point Series virtual side of things, the Two Tough Nationals was Saturday, originally planned to be a 2-day show in tribute of Too Tough Tom Schultz. Tom Schultz, unfortunately, did not make it to see it. They had the celebration of life for Tom Schultz on Friday. He wasn't able to be there, but his son, surrounded by a great support group, Tom Schultz, and then he came and hung around a little bit, but he was having some audio issues. And I also learned that confidence, as I've learned so many times before, is the predecessor to disappointment. Hosting a demolition derby on my own was far more challenging than what I had practiced on with the pressure and trying to stream it at the same time using 2 computers. I ended up just backing it down to 1, and things were better. I got the new laptop up close to 100 degrees Celsius, which, if you're familiar with conversions, 212 degrees Fahrenheit is where water boils. And the processor was not particularly happy.
Interesting.
100 is equal to 212 if you're not sure. And I didn't have the luxury of being able to drop some Downy in the laptop or maybe put an egg in. It was just,
You could have tried it.
it was just flat out running out. Well, I don't know how much we've actually got into. This has been a very challenging last 7 days since last we were here. I was gathering my things in my haste to get down to do announcements, and gathered my laptop, and my main graphics computer crashed to the floor, and it would spool up enough to kick the fans on and shut down. So something major has gone on with the processor. So I did what any logical person would do. I grabbed it with 2 hands, and I shook the shit out of that thing. and I heard some stuff rattle around. I turned around, and it kept running.
Fixed.
So I knew that now, at best, I've borrowed time. And we did some research. I talked to a bunch of different people. Most of my conversations were with Brandon Reimer and Hunter Wood, and got advice and got links and looked around and found a very good computer at Best Buy where this other one came from. This other computer lasted me for 7 years.
And it was abused for 7 years.
All of the technology. Well, the graphics computer wasn't as abused as the other one.
Oh, okay.
But point made. all the technology has been upgraded since then. Like I couldn't pop the drives in, nothing was necessarily compatible, so we had to get remote stuff. And then because it wasn't unlocked, some of the stuff still the drive still thought that it was in the other computer, so it was user protected as admin. It was a challenging week. But at this point, all of the graphics, I don't know what I don't know, but at this point everything has been recovered. I left the other drive in it and it will run, but in the midst of playing with a little bit more, something additional has gone wrong in the audio system, so it was going to need to be replaced. It just sounded like nails on a chalkboard, so I know that the players aren't going to work right. We did our first test run with the announcements today, and I am a student of the game, learned some new things about what the settings needed to be for the new computer to play nice with all the stuff that we had at school, but it was... Well, I realize why I had the computer for 7 years. I don't like changing things, period. I don't like it. So, nonetheless, we got it. It's back on its feet. It's working, and here we are. But that was one of the reasons why we if it seems like maybe we were a little bit behind getting things together this week. Computers in the month of May, not liking them. Not liking them. It's been rough for everybody.
Yeah, Chris, I was talking to Chris a little bit during the week, and stressed was a good word to describe him most nights. So, but he sent me a proof and has designed me a pretty kick-ass sign, and be debuting that here in a couple weeks. And anybody that wants a amazing sign, get a hold of Chris Marquardt.
Trying. I just had a comparison made. I don't know how many Harry Potter fans we have. But I thought this was interesting that someone said that I am kind of like Harry with the goblet on fire, and I didn't even put my name on the goblet. And I thought that was somewhat fitting with all this stuff, because it's your roof sign. I don't need to put my logos on it. I've said that 1,000 times to people, and I don't do a lot of advertising. I don't take a lot of credit. I thought that was a rather interesting comparison to get as we were getting ready to start the show tonight, given everything that we have gone through and all the stuff that has happened in the past. I mean, I'm talking like literally like 6 to 8 weeks, just for everything that has transpired front to back. It's been pretty wild, and it's been good. Been good. 400 episodes. It's just mind blowing, and here we are, 7 minutes away from wrapping up number 401.
Yep, it is crazy. Chris will be on air this weekend at the Bash for Cash, providing the best in Derby commentary in the country. So, if you are not able to be there, check him out. Always does an amazing job. Unfortunately, we're about 10, 11 people short at work. So I won't be there. Yeah. So they're
told me that the other day about, well, I don't know if this is going to work, because I think I'm going to get ordered. And then you kind of shared with me how bleak that outlook was. It's like, I don't know how they're not telling you just to bring a sleeping bag and plan on working.
Well, we were down 8 lines, and last week one of our officers on the overnight shift came in and handed in his 2-week notice. And another officer also on the overnights handed in her 2-week notice. So there's going to be some changes coming, and things are going to be drastic. So the good news is I will still have a job, and I will still be on days. We'll see.
Tyler Dodd was the gentleman we were talking about here before we went to break. Scotty Drevenite Jr. in the Smash It mini class this year. Parker Michaels, another guy that we know. I saw Danny Mullen's name on there.
Lannon's running that again, isn't he? Steve's son?
That is
Lannon.
Steve Lannon. Lannon's kid is in the Taylor is in the Smith Metalworks class.
Okay.
This is in the Smash It mini class. Tyler Dodd was the guy that won the
RC Derby.
No. Tyler, I'm pretty sure it was Tyler Dodd. Maybe now you're making me question it. Actually, Tyler Dodd. I'm pretty sure it was Tyler Dodd that won with the aluminum, the front wheel drive against all the rear wheel drive in the stock class last year, or excuse me, in the compact class last year. We'll have to see who decides if that's going to happen again.
Yeah, and it came down to him and one of the Rutherfords.
There was a bunch of the Rutherfords.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of those rear-wheel drive AMCs still hanging around, and he was able to bring it home, and that was really the debate. You know, who's going to be able to make this thing pay off in terms of the front-wheel drives.
Kevin Ullman was there, correct? He was in top 5 as well.
I think one of the Mulders was there too.
Yeah. Was it Mulder or was it Ullman?
I think they both were. There was one year Candace was there, and there was like the entire Blizzard Bash team had cars. Plus, they all had.
I think Nate Middendorf's coming back this year too.
He's on there. Yep.
So, yeah, it's going to be a great show, front to back. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how the new classes go. You know, it's somebody's gonna put their name in the record book, and it'll be there forever. I'd seen Tim Jr. was on last week and mentioned that there may be a $500 Mad Dog for all the classes, and I believe I saw that is the case. There will be a $500 Mad Dog, so going to be a lot of money given away this weekend. If you're going, enjoy yourself, stay safe. Sometimes the golf carts get a little wild. You got to keep them things under control, keep them mowed down. Have a great time. Hopefully the weather's great. Like I said, Chris is going to be heading out solo.
Sounds like Kool-Aid's not going to be able to make it. He got crushed his hand.
Oh,
Heard about that?
No.
So, I'm kind of half waiting for an update because he sent some pictures and his hand did not look good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's all right. If nothing else, you're gonna want to ice it, and the best way to ice it is in the pits.
Yeah. Yeah, that always works well. But no, it's going to be a good weekend for everybody, and wish Chris safe travels. Usually last year he actually stayed up with me all the way home to talk, so that was nice. A lot of times, and I said before, when Chris is at his show and working, by the time the show's over, he is mentally exhausted. So usually he's good for half an hour out of Chillicothe.
So
last year though, he stayed up and we talked the whole way home, so that was fun.
there was a prompt on Badger Bash. When I went back on YouTube, they can give you statistics about optimizations and things like that on Badger Bash one night from that show that I announced for with Derek Creetlow and Noise Inc. It was a video game derby, and it identified the words for the subtitles. And in 6 hours, I think it was 6 hours and 18 minutes, I said 32,800 words that it was able to pick up. So if I was talking real close to the microphone like that, it just becomes inaudible. They can't tell what it is that I'm saying. So that's one word.
Yeah.
So 32. That was. I thought
talked,
it was more, but it was still cool.
We've talked about that before. I mean, when we would go out and to Topeka and we would have our pre-show to the final feature. You know, we'd get up Monday morning to come home and we were exhausted. We wouldn't talk till we got to somewhere in the middle of our trip. And not because, you know, we were in a bad mood or anything. We were just exhausted.
There's nothing else to say.
Yeah, we were
said
just,
all the.
oh my gosh. It's crazy. You know, it takes a lot of work to do that and do it well, without a doubt. And Chris is the best, so watch him this weekend.
I'm looking forward to seeing Steve and everybody out there as well. It's going to be great. Travel safe for all the folks that are getting out there, and I guess punch it up on Derby Tees if you can't, by all means. But we've said all there is to say. Now it's time to start awarding some big checks and waving some checkered flags.
For sure.
From here on out, we're going to have some very full weekends because we're inching awful close to our season up here starting to pick up. I think the Buck has a Derby this weekend on top of everything that's happening every place else. So the early throes of the busy season are back upon us now.
It's wide open from Memorial Day on. So
absolutely,
if you can't find a Derby, then you're not looking very hard.
That's right. Well, I appreciate all the support as always, and we're going to be back here again. Probably not next Monday, but
Chris needs to sleep a little.
Some points thereafter, and we'll break down and recap everything that happened at the Bash for Cash. We'll see everybody then. Thanks for watching.
The Crash Course Live is presented by Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of May Mania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com. Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel, and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.